Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Eurogulf Information Centre's video commentary. My name is Mitchell Belfer and I'm the president of the association here in Rome, Italy. Today is 14 February 2019 and it comes as some very important anniversaries are being marked this week, and I will focus attention today on two very important anniversaries. One, which occurred a couple of days ago, and we will of course feel the remnants of it for the foreseeable future, and that is the 40-year anniversary of the rise of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the second anniversary, and very much in contrast to the first, is the 18th anniversary of the National Action Charter in Bahrain. Now, the reason why I'm choosing these two countries, not only because they're areas of my interest and specialization and in an area of the world that we focus on here in the Eurogulf Information Center, namely the Arab Gulf, but also because of the stark contrast between the direction that these two countries have taken. When it comes to Iran and the marking of the 40th year anniversary, it's really time to pause and reflect and to think back about the promise of the Islamic Revolution some 40 years ago and what it actually turned into. Because, and this is why we have to be so very clear, the Islamic Revolution is a tragedy of the 20th century. Not only does it displace and devour its own people, and that's why you have such huge expatriate communities in France, in the United States, in Australia. These were people, the intelligentsia, that were forced to flee as their country, not only those who were connected to the Shah, but as the country shifted from a relatively secular and an open country to being one based on sectarianism and religious political violence. And I often remark that the only real difference between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Islamic State, ISIS or Daesh, whatever you want to call it, the only real difference is 40 years. It's time. And if the Islamic State had had more time, in other words, countries didn't push back against it, it would have been somehow reconciled with the wider international community the way that Iran had been. And it's very important for us to look back at the Islamic Revolution in Iran, not as a sweeping success throwing out the excesses of the Shah, but we have to look at it as a monumental failure in the sense that so many different segments of society were absolutely obliterated by this resurgent, violent form of religious extremism. And in Iran itself, of course, the first victims were the Iranian people, the communists, the socialists, those people who at the beginning had supported the return of Khomeini and the thrust against the Shah. And they did so for reasons of national identity rather than the sectarian agenda that was later the reality of what the Islamic Revolution had actually produced. So it is, I think, quite essential to mark this 40th anniversary not through the celebration that many in Iran are trying to project, but rather we simply should reflect on the lives lost and the opportunities lost for the people who have been really subdued by this regime. Now, if the Islamic Republic of Iran were only to have focused its attention domestically, we could easily, as an international community, simply say, all right, it's a domestic issue. But the whole reason for the revolution is to spread. And we should not disconnect what happens inside Iran to what happens within the wider Gulf region and the Middle East, in fact. And what you've seen is a resurgence of radical ideologies that are basically spurred on by the revolution in Iran. So it's not only a matter of domestic politics, it's really a matter of regional politics, because the Revolutionary Guard has produced organizations, for example, like Hezbollah, and what they're trying to do is essentially spread the Islamic Revolution throughout the region. And where you get points of friction is when the other countries resist that Iranian drive for hegemony via its proxies. That's why, for example, the hotspots of the region always, in the past decade and a half, always have the hand of Iran. And that, of course, brings us to the situation in the Arab Gulf.